Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It, the podcast to help you fix your marriage. I'm Shai Lewis. I'm here with Nina Rosner. Our mission is to help you, Christian married man or woman, navigate conflict and build connections so you can have a thriving marriage. All right, so today we are going to discuss 5 tips on how to revive your relationship. So, we have sort of begun a series around respect. Last week, we spoke about self respect and the basics and how that is just foundational to changing your relationship. Today, we want to discuss what respect for others looks like and how that also contributes to transforming your relationship just as much. So, welcome, Nina. I'm excited to discuss this with you today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Shy. It's a great topic, and it's one literally everybody on the planet sometimes struggles with.
Absolutely. So I know as wives, that's a thing God tells us that we have to do, the same way he tells men they have to love us. But it seems like, I don't know about you, but it can feel like, what does that look like? Like respect. I sometimes feel clueless around that topic. So um, the world says one thing, the Bible says another thing. And we often get it wrong, especially when there's a lot of pain.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that today. What we want our guests to walk away with is what respect actually looks like. If you don't do this well, you can end up repeating old relational patterns and just remain stuck in those same cycles. And before I forget, I want to send you guys to our website, greaterimpactwives.org. There's a free PDF called 5 Tools for How to Stop Walking on Eggshells. If you download it, you can learn a lot more about what we do at Greater Impact. And if you need questions or have questions, you can reach out to someone as well. Okay, so respect. In one of your blogs, you wrote the statement respect for your spouse and others is not based on their behavior, but you as a respectful person. Can you elaborate on what you meant by that?
Yeah, so Jesus said, "Love your enemies," right? If you're
Yeah.
hit, give them the other cheek, and so that's the character of Christ within us. And as we journey along this path, that is our goal to become more like Christ. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, it means that in the middle of a situation, I'm not going to take it personally. Whatever is said to me, whatever is said to me, I'm not going to make that about me because it's actually a reflection of the other person. Even if they're using you language, and even if I did the thing, they're tipped over about it at the level they are because of what's going on within them. And regardless of whether I know that or not, the question is really, question is not, do they deserve respect? Have they earned respect? I mean, that's a secular culture standard. And I understand that exists. And you got to have boundaries of people that behave badly. That's a different issue. But
Mhm.
the question really is, am I a respectful person?
Mm.
So if I am accosted by a beggar on the street, am I going to be, am I going to punch him in the face? Or am I going to be like, hey, man, you want to talk about Jesus? He's his opportunity, right? Am I going to take whatever they say personally? Like, no, because it's not about me. And Jesus already paid for all of that. Whatever ugly thing is happening, any harsh behavior towards us, Jesus already took all of that. It's not really aimed at us. It's the enemy coming out, and Jesus hung on the cross for it. So it's already forgiven. And so I
Mm.
need to make a decision. Who am I in this moment? Am I a respectful person? Am I kind? Can I handle conflict kindly and gently and firmly, truthfully, with boundaries? There's that.
So you mean to tell me someone can insult me, someone can treat me horribly, I can be treated like a doormat and I can still show up with respect. That just seems like a tall order, right?
Yeah, yeah. And people are like blaming their spouse for exactly all the things that you just said, right? But let's look at that. When when somebody says something and it's like people don't just get tipped over unless they're sociopaths. So you can just be, yeah, it's very rare that somebody's just sitting there minding their own business and their spouse comes in and starts screaming at them. Like that doesn't usually happen. What usually happens is somebody says something and then that causes a reaction in the other person because of their previous history, their wounding, their stuff. They take it personally and then they launch a grenade back at you.
Hmm.
Most of the time, you don't know that you've just said something that tipped them over until you get a grenade launched at you. And so you have a choice. And I will say, if you are unhealed in most of your spaces, if you're pretty immature, you're not going to have much of a choice. You're going to be operating, just based off of habit. Like you're going to be reacting instead
Right.
of responding. There's
Hmm.
no wisdom in that. Evil may rule you, foolishness may, you're going to jump right in and launch a grenade back at them. And it's like, yeah, stop that. Have no part with foolish arguments. Stay out of them. And they're all foolish. All of that kind of stuff is foolish. And so what we can do instead is breathe and go, huh, you seem something. What's going on? And then be curious. It's like, well, I'm not any of that. Well, yeah, you're not because you got work to do inside of you to get, you're a victim. You're sitting in a victim seat. And I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying you in
Hmm.
general. Like me too. The places where I get tipped over, I'm a victim. I
Hmm.
blame the other person for my sorry, sad state of affairs, blah, blah, blah. I'm not taking ownership over my circumstances, and my circumstances are determining who I am. And so when I get healing in that space, which I haven't a lot, I'm not perfect, but when I get healing, then I can look at this differently and I can say, okay, what's it look like to be a leader in this space? Hey, Holy Spirit, what do you want me to do here? How do I love this person in this now? Because you can't hear the Holy Spirit when you're emotional.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, dealing with our own emotions then puts us in a space where we can hear the Holy Spirit and then interact in a loving and kind, truthful way.
Yeah. And you make it sound so easy. We know it's
I'm
not.
sorry. It's not. That's a good point. It is not. You got to get through the ugly to get to that. When you do, it is actually.
Yes. Uh,
Yeah, it really
yeah.
is because it's who you are.
Yes. And I say that tongue in cheek because there is a lot of work that like the healing part, that might take years. There's some inner healing, there's a lot of the steps, there's gathering yourself and choosing to be obedient, hearing God's voice,
Yep.
um, detaching your identity. There's a lot of yuck in there.
Yeah, it takes a minute.
So it takes a minute. And but to your point, yes, once you get to the other side and you've practiced and created a new way of relating, a new pattern, a new cycle, then it becomes more second nature than reacting by yelling back or,
Yeah, that's just not who you are anymore because you're healed.
yeah.
That doesn't come up. You've dealt with all of it, and then now you've got the character of Christ in that space, which is what that's the point. Like, hello, transform your mind, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
And I think about like how we're able to do that in certain scenarios. Like for instance, at work, most people aren't going to get offended, unless it's something like horrible that happens. If, a coworker or a boss or a manager says something mean to you or they have a bad day, I think most of us can kind of brush that off as their issue
Hmm. Hmm.
and continue to respect that person
Hmm.
as a human being or as a leader or whatever the situation may be. We're able to do that pretty well, but when it comes to our intimate relationships, it just gets a little more muddy, and so it's harder to remember that they are also made in the image of Christ and, require respect. I mean, what is that? Why is it so hard for us? And
Yeah, no, that's a great question because it's very real. And
yeah.
the reason that exists in the first place is because we have our identity wrapped up in their opinion of us.
Mm,
We're not living out Acts 5:29 to please God and not man. We're all about what does this person think of me? And that's usually wrapped up in something that your mom did when you were 7, you know, and you took this lie upon yourself of I'm unlovable, and my parents think I'm a bother or whatever because they had an argument and it came up that somebody had to pick you up from soccer and it wasn't about that, wasn't about you, but the enemy used that or your own flesh because kids make sense of the world around them. That's what they do. It's normal.
mm,
But that's how they came up with that. And so you wander through life with that filter, right? And
right.
yeah, and so the people closest to us are the ones where we're enmeshed with their opinions of us. It's a really unhealthy dynamic, and it can be super extreme. And there's people that have this with like every authority figure in their life, like they have to make everybody happy, or there's something wrong with them. And it's a journey to get out of that. But the people closest to us, the people we love the most, those are the ones that have the ability to inflict that kind of uh, torturous opportunity, I'll call it, because that is what it is. It's a why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
Not, yeah, it's not, it's an opportunity to dig into, okay, why does this hurt? Why does this upset me this much? What is that? And then
And
grow.
and until that is addressed,
Hmm.
it'll keep happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Very true.
Yeah, and I think, like, to your point, this is an indication of there is work to be done versus changing the dynamic. The goal becomes healing yourself
Yep.
instead of healing the person or changing the person.
Hmm.
And I think that is where the real shift takes place
Hmm.
because our focus is no longer on what's going wrong. It's on, God, what are you saying to me through this
Hmm.
situation?
Yeah. It's a really difficult thing to talk about, even in Christian culture, because we're so focused on blame and
Hmm.
even other people's sin, and we're dishing judgment, and we don't even know that we're doing that. And that's coming out of our own pain with our own history. I mean, there's literally movements within Christendom that are just so aggressive and they're born out of pain and they go after people. And it's like, yeah, you can do that if you want to. That's not the way that Christ recommends you solve problems, especially with brothers and sisters. So it's really kind of sad, but it is what human beings do. Go all the way back to the garden.
Mm,
Yeah, Eve is like, well, the serpent said, and Adam's like, that woman you gave me. So we've been blaming since the garden, but it doesn't change anything. It just makes people defensive and perpetuates the problem.
right,
So,
right. Okay, so let's talk about what respect actually looks like. Because, like I said earlier, sometimes it can feel like you're clueless, especially as a woman, as to how to be respectful toward your spouse, because what we think is respect might be disrespect and vice versa. So you had a few things here in your list where you sort of touched on what would qualify as respectful behavior. And the first one on the list is kindness. So obviously this is a fruit of the spirit, and this is,
mhm.
part of what God says love looks like, but because men have their own language, can you maybe talk to what kindness would look like in the form of respect?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the big traps women fall into is becoming his mother. And
Mm,
so instead of, you say, hey, baby, will you take the garbage out? And it's sitting there, it's out of the can, it's right there in the middle of the room. And he walks by it 18 times, right? And most women would go, oh, yeah, sure. And then pick it up and take it out, like real close to right then, right? Um, And the guy, he might say, well, yeah, sure, and then not do it for a while because he's going to go out to the garage where the garbage cans are in about 20 minutes, but you don't know that, right?
Right.
And so what, I mean, this is just an example, but what happens is we bubble up with, oh, you don't love me and you're ignoring me and I'm not important and you never do anything to help me. And you know, all these things are happening in our heads.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Because of all this stuff that we believe about ourselves as being worthless instead of knowing who we are in Christ. And so then we say, hello, I asked you to take that garbage out and you've walked by it 18 times. And we got this, you know, the head bobbing thing, and we're all, you know, like, what is going on with you? Like, how can you just do that? How can you just ignore this? And we start acting like it's a 3-year-old child. And then attached to that is also the need for approval from this person or the need for them to actually care about us in a way that we determine makes
Mm.
sense. Even, and the poor guy is just like, what? Yeah, I said I was going to do that. Well, you haven't yet, and you've walked by it 8 times, you know, but we're grumpy, we're not. And so instead of that, it's like, hey, um, I just want to check in with you. I'm worrying about this garbage because there's something in it that might leak. And I've seen you walk by 8 times. And I'm just wondering what your plan is with that.
Mm.
That assumes the best about that person. It treats them well. And you're the one with the issue at the moment, right? And by the way, you didn't communicate that it might leak. So there's always stuff for us to own in these situations. And for
Mm.
us to be, harshness is sin. Like we
Yeah.
have to understand that harshness is sin and nothing justifies us evil for evil. Like, no, we can't do that. And I've done it. I have, like, but it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And it also doesn't bring you closer together. So if you were to say all of what I just said, hey, you know, I know you have a plan and, you know, da, da, he'd go, yeah, I'm going out to the garage in about 10 minutes. I'm going to grab it on my way. But if there's something that might leak, I'll just go do it now. Like, hello, can we just
Mm.
be kind?
Something so simple that we
Yep.
make harder than it should be.
Hmm.
Okay, so the next on the list is gentleness. It sounds like that might be right along with kindness, the same
Hmm.
approach that you just gave. I mean, what is gentleness and how that contributes to respect?
Yeah. So kindness is an overarching way of interacting with people that is not aggressive. Gentleness, and this is, you know, dictionary according to Nina, but the way I look at this in the word in the view of respect is that gentleness means I'm going to take into consideration that this person is also sensitive and has some wounding, even if they don't talk about it. They're a human
Mm,
like me, and
hmm
I'm going to be careful and thoughtful about how I speak to them. And I'm going to, if I have a hard thing to tell them, I'm going to do it in a gentle way.
mm,
Hey, I don't want to hurt you with this. Um, I have a hard thing to say to you, and the last thing I want is for this to like tip you over or anything. Is this a good time to have a tough conversation? And you actually care about the other person. Hello.
hmm
So you're right, they're close.
hmm
Um,
But they're not the same.
they're not. Kindness is an absence of harshness. Gentleness, I think, is an awareness of the human heart within the other person. And so that awareness, we're going to treat that person very carefully, not walking on eggshells. That's different. That's fear-based.
Mm.
It's, I have compassion for you. And so I'm going to be gentle with you. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That sounds just like the character of Christ,
Hmm.
how he loves us. So that was a great definition. And okay, the next one is honesty. Now, this one can be tricky because telling the truth is hard,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's about somebody else or even being honest with yourself, it could just be a hard thing in general
Hmm.
to swallow and just say what is the truth in the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the first step in being honest is to stop lying. Because we don't really know what the truth is. We've got our truth, and then there's the truth, and there's your truth. You know, it's like, oh my goodness, 58 different perceptions around this, and God's the only one that knows all of it. But to stop lying, that first step of, you know, my initial gut reaction to this request you've just made is, um, I don't think this fits with what I want to do, but I'm happy to pray about that and then I'll get back to you. Versus, oh yeah, sure, I can do that. And then you betray yourself because it's one more thing and you're not supposed to be doing it and you know it, but you sign up for it anyway. Like, stop that. Stop lying. Puts too much on your plate. Then the last part of this is honesty, is telling the truth. And we, oh, guys, we cannot have real relationship when we're lying to people.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It's like in the bedroom, and he says, was that good for you? And you're faking orgasms, like, stop lying. And then on top of that, hey, honey, that really hurts. We need to not do. How many women, like too many women I talk to, don't say, hey, that doesn't work for me. Can we try this instead? When they're in pain, physical
Yeah.
or emotional. It's just, oof, like, yeah. But uh, my interactions with men, they want to please us. They really do. Most at the heart of who they are, they want to delight their wives, and they don't want to be lied to. They'd rather have the truth delivered kindly and gently, but
Yeah.
they'd rather have that so they don't spend 20 years thinking that this works. Like, no, don't do that to your husband.
And I think the key is, like you said, doing it kindly and gently. Because I think when I think about a woman in that situation, there may be that fear that's
Mhm,
driving her to say nothing, which is not the right thing. She may be trying to spare his ego. She may be, just thinking this is part of it. But there is a way. There is a way to say the truth
mhm,
and also be kind and gentle. And I don't think we know how to do that well. So many of us struggle with that delicate balance of being
mhm,
able to do that. So we either just don't say the truth at all, or we are harsh. And
mhm.
just learning that balance, I think, is where God lives.
Yeah, and to your point, when we don't tell the truth, what happens in intimate relationships is we're flashing micro expressions at our partner. And so when we say yes to something that or no, no, that I'm fine, that there's nothing wrong. They know that there is because we flashed a micro expression. And they may not be able to identify what is it, but they know something's not right. And we've just damaged trust in the relationship.
Mm.
Yeah, we've blown up an opportunity. And it's really fine to say, hey, I don't know what I think about this. Right now it's not very good. So I'm going to talk to the Lord about it and I'll get back to you. Like, be that if you need to be, if you need to buy
Yeah,
time and figure it out.
yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about in the marriage intensive is, how important it is to work the small stuff, the tiniest of things. And so, it can be really tedious, but we teach people to start with the small things and to be kind and gentle when they approach. So they might go to their spouse and say, "Hey, so I'm doing that assignment from class, and I'm bringing to you a small thing, and I really kind of hate it that I'm this sensitive over this. But yesterday at dinner, when you interrupted me in front of the kids, I that was humiliating for me. I just felt really, I don't know, less than, talked over, not protected, something really ugly. And it made me not want to hang out with you later. Like, I was just really discouraged by that.
Mm.
And yeah, and so yeah, okay, can you overlook that? Maybe, should you? Maybe, or maybe not. Like, and that's why we have you do the steps, that whole process, where you're interacting with God, because if there's something to be said, he's going to tell you, or you're going to be totally fine and healed from it through that process. So,
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, the next one is emotional control. So speaking of the steps, can you maybe explain how emotional control or self-control, because that's also in the fruit, one of the fruits of the spirit, and how that contributes to respect for others.
oh man, like this is, I could get lit over this. I could
I
just
know.
totally break all my rules here with this. I feel so strongly about this. But I'm not tipped over. I'm not out of self-control. I'll say that because I can talk about it without yelling. This is such a huge deal. We do not understand that we literally give our tongue over to the enemy, basically. And
Mm,
all these vile, hateful, mean, damaging things come out and just destroy the other person. Oh my word. It is so awful to do that. And self-control means I have mastery. I have the ability to contain what's within me. And, God talks about how everything is done in a fitting and orderly way. He's talking about communication and types of communication when he gives that decree, because God is a God of order. And so, can I have order in this? Or am I going to lose my ever loving mind all over this person? Basically, what I'm saying when I'm doing that is I'm 3 years old and I'm having a temper tantrum. Let her rip. Sorry, no, that's not a fruit of the spirit. It's just you want to destroy a relationship. I'll give yourself the freedom to act like a kid. And that's what that is. It's immature. There's probably evil involved. It's definitely foolish. There's no wisdom in it. It's dangerous behavior for any relationship. And if you keep doing it, well, you're going to get what you create, unfortunately.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really disrespectful to yourself too.
Oh,
I mean,
yes. Good point.
you're not respecting yourself or the other person when you
Hmm.
have no emotional control. I can't think of one instance where I was out of my mind emotional and felt like I did a good job.
Oh, hello. Yeah. Me neither.
Even if the thing you're saying is true. And that's why the kindness and gentleness piece is so important because I mean, who's going to hear the truth if it's just coated with chaos?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, okay, so the last one is try not to yell, which kind of goes right along with having self-control. So when we yell, I think we're attempting to be heard a
Hmm.
lot of times, but the opposite happens actually,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, and I've done this. You think, well, if I just say it louder, exactly what I just said, you're gonna get it. It's like, no, it doesn't work that
Doesn't
way.
work that
Like
way.
it, like at all. It doesn't. And there's nothing kind or gentle or loving or respectful about yelling ever. It's a tactic that people will use. It's also a loss of self-control. It's disrespectful to yourself. I taught
Mhm.
public speaking for years at college and was part of Dale Carnegie for a decade and a half. And we never raised our voice at the audience or the class members when they got loud and whatever. I would just walk over to near where the students were speaking out of turn, and I would just kind of look at them, and one of them would be like, "Oh, okay," and then I'd have their attention. I'd say, "Thank you," and then I'd move on. I didn't have a disruptive classroom ever because of that. And it's dignified to respect yourself by not yelling. Don't yell at your because when you do that at kids, you teach them that I don't have to listen to anything she says until she yells.
Yes,
Whoosh. Yeah.
that is so true. I can vouch for that one. It doesn't work.
I'm so sorry.
But
Yeah, it's a brutal thing to learn, but it is, yeah.
it just doesn't. It just you look crazy, they're looking at you crazy, and I mean, it's just you're teaching them bad behavior. It's just nobody wins in that situation.
Yep.
So what does work though is a touch,
Hmm.
sometimes going over and gently touching them, or a whisper. It's funny how whisper, people want to
Yes.
hear you.
Yes. So
Doing
important.
yeah, so but it's counterintuitive. So
Hmm.
it's something you have to have self-awareness around to get to that place where you can demonstrate more healthy behavior. So okay, so that was awesome. We have covered kindness, gentleness, honesty, emotional control, and yelling versus whispering. So those are 5 things you can do really quickly that will change the dynamic in your relationship.
Can I
So,
toss a freebie extra in there?
absolutely. Go
Okay.
ahead.
This is one that most women don't know that's hugely important. It's a main difference, and there's research behind it. It's a main difference between the way men and women communicate. Women talk like you and I've been doing, and been, oh yeah, we do that. Men view that as interruption, and they perceive interruption as an attempt at control. And so if you want to create defensiveness, don't communicate with a man as if he's a woman. Yeah, that's a thing. And I mostly speak to women. So when I'm on a coaching call with a man,
Mhm.
I use the mute button a lot, especially if I just got off of a call with a woman where I'm all empathetic and yeah, all that, right?
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just like what you're doing right now, like that. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
We
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, this whole exchange right here, right now, like that's what we do. Men perceive that as an attempt at control. And so we don't want to have those participative mutterings or encouragements with them because that doesn't work. And I've seen men literally pause every time it's done. It's almost like it derails their train of thought and they don't like it. Now,
Yeah.
a lot of men can just deal with it and keep going. Um, some men will even stutter when that is brought to them. It's like, oh my goodness. But it is interruptive to their train of thought. And it's because of how their brains are wired. They're very focused. They have, they're on a train track. We've got 58 tabs open on our computer. Like our brains are totally different. And so while that's manageable for us, for men,
Hmm.
it's different. So we want to be respectful in that way and not interrupt them, even though it doesn't look like interruption. And then you've got the whole, let me tell you what I think thing, where you start talking and yeah, that full on interruption, bad idea. Validate, then ask, hey, do you mind? Do you feel like I get you? Can I share what my thoughts are on this? And that's respectful, right? And it
Mm.
helps him shift gears into listening to you, and it's respectful of how he's wired by God. His brain is different. It doesn't mean you're less than because you say you ask that. It helps move the conversation into a different place. So you can take offense and be upset about it if you want to because you're a girl, but it really isn't about any kind of superiority or anything. It's about difference. Yeah.
This is so good. This is like such a great nugget because you don't think it's necessary, but it's such a help. When I think about the help that God has called us to do as women, it's such a helpful thing to do for our men to help them shift gears or just listen and turn that mute button on, that imaginary mute button if you have to, and let them finish their thought before you move to the next thing. Oh my goodness, this is such a gem. And it's just about really controlling yourself. Like you're not even like trying to like change them. It's like, what can
Right.
I do? So
Mhm.
this is really gold information. Thank you so much. So okay, well, there you go. You got a sixth tip on how to change your marriage. So we hope this was helpful for you today. We invite you again to check out our website, greaterimpactwives.org, for more info. The next episode also has more tips on how to show up well in your difficult relationships. So check it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining.